On this episode of Sides, we talk about the new year, new calendar. Have you seen the new Mr. January 2018?
We're building such a following for Justin Trudeau and making him out to see this, like, be this perfect person.
And do millennials have a racial preference when dating? Teddy, do you have a preference?
I like my woman like I like my coffee. Mix it up. Now, what about these boomerang children?
Actually getting people to go out there and really experience themselves, and you'd have to go out and leave your parents, leave your support system.
Layla, will you ever move out of your parents' basement?
First of all, I live in the room beside their room, and no, not for a while. We got a lot to discuss tonight, so we're going to be talking about my Canadian boyfriend, the calendar, violence in public spaces, interracial dating, and living with parents till you're really old. We're going to start off, as always, though, with our okay, no ways. So I'm going to hit it up first. So my okay this week is Times Magazine naming their person of the year a group of people. It's called the Silence Breakers. So essentially, it's got a bunch of women on the cover who have done a lot of work to bring conversation out to the public about like sexual assault and sexual violence in the workplace and elsewhere. And I think this is super, super rad because it really honors these women who have done so much and put so much like personal loss and personal risk on the scene to actually get this conversation out. And a lot of real change has come out of this, especially this year. So I am so about this cover and this person of the year. My no way of the week is an opossum broke into a liquor store in Florida, proceeded to break a bottle of bourbon and then drink the whole bottle. So it got very, very drunk. And the employees of like the staff of the store came back, found the opossum, was very disoriented. They called the appropriate authorities. Thankfully, the opossum was taken to whoever it needed to be taken to and got better and was released in the wild. But this is my no way because I feel like this possum could have died from alcohol poisoning. And it was just, this is like a life-threatening issue for this opossum, but it survived.
Okay, so my okay this week, so there's been a viral photograph on Twitter of Mariah Carey sitting on an invisible chair. So I mean, what I mean really is that she was giving herself a really good thigh and calf workout. And yeah, look at it, I mean, this just proves that Mariah Carey is the biggest diva of all time. I mean, like, the chair, she doesn't need a chair. The chair needs her. I mean,
better than that Ariana stool
I know,
challenge too. Oh man.
Okay, so my no way this week is there's a report coming out that airlines are making $82 billion more money by collecting extra fees on things like baggage and food. And that's totally my no way because we already pay so much for traveling, and to pay more when you're in a compromised situation, I mean, that's horrible.
It's true. I was looking for Christmas tickets to go see my grandparents and too expensive.
Way too expensive.
All right. So my okay for this week is an event that happened at a subway station between passengers just all dancing to Cardi B's song, Bodak Yellow. And my God, I want to show y'all a clip. I want to show y'all a clip first. That's like my favorite song. So why it's my okay is because, man, there's so many negative things going on in the world, and just seeing how joyful people are coming together, going to work, wherever they're going, just makes me so happy. So that's my okay. My no way for this week is a BBC video that released. It's called Christmas Together, and it's about this girl who rehearses for a recital and how her dad kind of just ignores her, but until the end of the video where it's a Christmas recital. And I want to show you a video for this one too. Tell you why it's my no way, because like even watching the video now I'm gonna cry. And BB's like, people, we should not be allowed to see things like these. Although I think it's great, I think, man, I'm not trying to cry while I'm reading my Twitter. Like, I can't.
Okay, well, I'm gonna wrap this up with my okay. My okay is the IOC issued a ban against all Russian athletes from competing in the 2018 Winter Olympics in South Korea. And the reason it's a huge okay is because of the state-sponsored doping that they were doing before. before. And I think it's terrible to have these athletes feel pressured to have to now use performance-enhancing drugs and risk their lives in order to compete. And it's great because now we have all the Russian athletes that are proven to not dope, who can just compete under a different, neutral designation. There'll be no Russian flag, no anthems, no Russian officials allowed. And my no way is kiss cams. I am so cheesed by kiss cams because all of the kiss cam videos you see, like this one over here with she passes her beer and then that guy takes a sip and then they kiss. Oh no, it's crazy. I suspect that they are staged. And so many of them are, and I feel like it takes away from the magic of these organic interactions because you can't trust nothing. You can't trust nothing on those, and that's why they are my no way. I want to see real old people awkwardly kissing.
Oh my God,
That's
I'm
what
done with
want.
you.
I don't.
I'm so done with you. All right, it's time to check out our first topic of discussion.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau can add a new title to his resume. 12 of them, actually. An American publisher has released a 2018 wall calendar featuring 12 images of the Canadian Prime Minister, including a photo of him in a cowboy hat, a photo of him with a puppy, and a photo of him without a shirt on. The Prime Minister's office says it's not involved in any way. The publisher says the calendar is meant to be funny, but others aren't impressed and argue that the constant fawning over Justin Trudeau needs to stop. What do you think of this calendar? All in good fun or completely inappropriate?
My side on this is, why is this even a controversy? I mean, it's amazing that we have our Prime Minister on a calendar being admired and respected around the world. I mean, it's better than having some brainless celebrity or the American president. And I find it's amazing because it really promotes Canada's brand and projects our influence throughout the world.
I think that scares me because I feel like they're both celebrities, to be honest. And what scares me is that we're building such a following for Justin Trudeau and making him out to see this, be this perfect person, where I think, what if he did something that harmed a specific group or a community? Then the whole world would love him, but then that community would feel like, wow, I can't even say anything because the rest of the world would hate me.
But don't you think, I mean, if you wrong someone, don't you think they'll speak out? Haven't you heard instances where, let's say, the tax plan recently, people have spoken out and it's been a backlash?
For sure, but I think when you build this platform for yourself, it's so hard.
So you're focusing on the whole them in love with it, though. Over here, I got Devlin, who said, I think that the Justin Trudeau calendar is inappropriate and they should stop making it. They sent this with #MySide. And I was wondering if any of you felt that then, is it inappropriate for the office of the Prime Minister to be celebrated like this, not just celebrity in general?
I don't know, I feel like the whole idea is we're living in an age where politicians are celebrities. You cannot deny it. Look at our French president, Emmanuel Macron, Donald Trump, Justin Trudeau, all of these new world leaders, they are celebrities. And honestly, I don't think this is a necessarily bad thing. I do understand your point by saying that the platform causes issues when people do want to speak up against them, because there are times when our politicians do things wrong. But I think in general, I'm just gonna relax on this one because our politicians really are celebrities, and that's just the way the world goes with social media and with us being everywhere.
I get that, but the whole thing is I feel like on his side, his team should be making sure that people know that he's not just a celebrity. This guy has the power with one signature to either make or break your life. And you have to remember that these people are in positions of power. And with that, we can't be treating them like a celebrity. I guess it's about,
if you're the Prime Minister, if you're the leader of this nation, then you are trying, or at least trying to portray this image of you work in the best interest of all of us. And I think most of this, people are focusing on how it affects us domestically. Think about internationally. I mean, the US and stuff, they are fawning over him, but I feel like that also sort of drips over to Canadians as well. I feel like I'm getting a bit extra attention whenever I bring up I'm Canadian. They're like, y'all are all heartthrobs up there, and I'm like, heck yeah, let's use that free healthcare plan, you know?
So is the poster's existence really all that bad? I guess it's not very important, but a little part of me feels very, very sad when I tell people I'm Canadian and they find out and they say, oh, I saw your Prime Minister in that poster in the bookstore. It's like, there's more important stuff than his look.
Jugmeat, it's so great to have you here in the present, but let's talk about the future. What do you want to see in Canada's future?
Wow, there's so many things I want to see. I've been talking about some personal experiences. I face discrimination because of the way I look and being stopped by the police. So I'd love to see a Canada where no one is ever stopped based on their identity or the color of their skin.
You mentioned stereotypes, Lon, there though. What advice do you have for youth that are facing turbulent times in their life due to these minority or ethnic stereotypes?
I believe in this independent, just being aware of your own self-worth. Every one of us has a unique self-worth, and to celebrate that and to dig deep into that, I think that's a way to really overcome a lot of the difficulties we face in our life. There's that notion that everyone has an inherent value.
Now, I want to go into an incident which happened rather recently with a heckler. Sometimes in the moment, it's hard to say the right thing, and something that I want to commend you for, and many people obviously did, is the fact that when they brought up that you were introducing Sharia law or part of the Muslim Brotherhood, you never tried to legitimize it by saying, oh, but I'm a Sikh. How did you know what to say in that moment?
That's a really good question. I actually played it back because everyone's like, oh, it's going viral. I'm like, okay, let me see what I said. And I was a bit surprised because you're right, in the moment, I didn't have it scripted. I didn't know what I was gonna say. One of the things that for me is more than just a slogan, the idea of love and courage, it's like a way of life. And so for me, I really wanna find a way that when I'm faced with negativity or an obstacle, I try to find a way to approach that with love in my heart and have the courage to rise above it. If someone calls me out on something, especially Islamophobia, I don't want to ever say that I'm not a Muslim. I always want to say that hate is wrong. That's always going to be my response, because I don't want to validate hate. And hate's like fire. Once you allow it to grow, it spreads, and it doesn't matter if it's based on someone's way of life or based on race or gender or sexuality. Hate, once allowed to grow, it's going to spread and attack everybody. So I think it's got to be stopped in its tracks.
If you could have the chance to go back and maybe tell your teenage self something a little bit different about the future, what advice would you give yourself?
I was afraid, I think, of taking chances. I was a bit shy at some points, and I would just tell myself, like, that's where all the beauty of life comes in, being open to opportunities, taking chances, putting yourself into positions where you're a little bit uncomfortable, safely, but I think that's so important to do, and I would have advised myself to get out there a bit more and take more chances.
Recently, experts defused a bomb found near a Christmas market in Potsdam, Germany. Having deja vu? The device was delivered to a pharmacy near the market. Initial reports suggested it was likely an attempt to blackmail a delivery company and likely wasn't an act of terrorism. But still, people are concerned. It comes almost a year after a terror attack on a Berlin Christmas market that killed 12 people. Attacks have taken place at concerts and in restaurants, at mosques and in churches, on bike paths and in airports. A Washington Post article pointed out that Americans are more likely to be fatally crushed by furniture than killed by a terrorist. But despite that, a New York Times questionnaire found that people are anxious about doing everyday things in the wake of mass violence. How have attacks on public spaces impacted the way you live your life?
I think that at the end of the day, just living in general is a really dangerous thing. Like, you can walk down the street and get mugged. So I think if your greatest fear is worrying about a terrorist attack, I don't think that should be your greatest fear. I think your greatest fear in life is just to be safe. You need to go out, you need to live your life safely. Don't do things that will necessarily put you in danger. Look before you cross both ways when you cross the street so you don't get hit by a car. And I literally think it's as simple as that. Like, I think terror is something that, and these are not always terror attacks, but these mass violence attacks on people, the reason they're so scary is because they're so big and they get so much media attention. But there's everyday things in your life that could take you out way more likely than one of these mass violent events.
I think I'd have to partially agree with you, but I don't know if you guys know this. I was actually born after 9/11, so after 9/11 it's just constant surveillance state and everyone's so freaked out about terrorism. But I really feel in the recent years it's gotten a lot worse. In terms of, I can go to a public square, the first thing I think, someone could have planted a bomb there and I'd have to find a way out. Or if I go into a building with, 10,000 people, I'm gonna look for the nearest exit and I'm gonna look how to get out, because I've seen so many of these online. You can't go anywhere. I know it's not rational, but we're emotional human beings, and I really find that, like, this makes me very anxious.
Do you think that kind of holds you back from living your life. Like, I find with things like that, people get so scared of, oh my God, there might be an attack here, or there might be violence over here, or something going wrong if I go here. I think it kind of sets them back from enjoying the life that was given to them and enjoying the great things about life. And yeah, these things, they may happen, but for sure. But if they're gonna happen, they're gonna happen. You can't change that. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah.
I think, like, man, you just gotta live your life.
Teddy, what do you think?
Okay, because right now I'm sort of like, there's this huge separation right now. We have on the one side the people who are constantly feel like they're being inundated with all this fear about, you know, could an attack happen here, could an attack not happen? And we have people like Austin over here, #MySide. It has gotten to the point now that I don't get sad when a terrorist attack happens. It doesn't bother me. And I'm thinking, you know, how can you find a middle ground? Because while I think, yeah, like you guys say, okay, there are way more dangerous things that could occur, I think just telling people, oh, just forget about, just let go of it, might lead to this weird desensitization where you can't
responsible. I mean, in my opinion, like, to bring back to Michael's point, you say that sometimes people don't like necessarily live their lives out. I think I still do live my life. I just have the consciousness every single time I enter like an event space like that. I know that it could be a possibility, and I look for ways to keep myself safe.
This is like a really interesting thing, because in this discussion here, I've been like so against it, but I'm starting to think that there are times in my life when maybe I do think about things, and it's just subconscious now.
When it comes to terrorism, it can happen to anyone, but I feel like if you live in like a small town like me, you shouldn't be worried about it, but you should still be prepared for the worst to happen, because if it happens, and it can happen to anyone, really.
All of us have felt fear, have felt anger, have felt sadness, and have felt empathy for the victims and their friends and family of all of these shootings and massacres.
So my beef this week is cyberbullies. Now, coming from a person with, like, I would say super thick skin, some people just think that the little comments that they make and the opinions that they have is just something that we're easily allowed to take. Like, no, that stuff really internalizes with me and a whole lot of people like myself. So for people who cyberbully, like, you really gotta ask yourself and really think about, you know, the words that you say. And for people who have been bullied online, just know that, you know, even people like myself and are going through these things too, and it's not easy for me. So just know that things will get better, and honestly, at the end of the day, you just have to love yourself and make sure that you know who you are.
Meghan is marrying Harry, Serena married Alexis, and Kim Ye are about to welcome baby number 3. But when it comes to interracial relationships, things are complicated. Just 4.6% of all married and common law couples in Canada are interracial, according to the latest data from StatsCan. And if you think online dating would help increase that number, think again. Data from OkCupid shows clear racial biases. Black women and Asian men fare worst of all on the platform. And 30% of people would strongly prefer to date someone of their own race. Some say having a racial preference when dating is fine. You're attracted to who you're attracted to. But others say ruling people out based solely on their skin color is clearly racist behavior. What do you think? Is having a racial preference when dating okay? Or is it racist?
I don't think having a preference is racist. Coming from like a Filipino background and family, like we only date like Filipinos or like marry like a white man or a white girl. For me, I don't think that that's a bad thing. If you can like who you like, I think when you're prejudiced and when your stereotypes get in the way of you falling for someone or you being even attracted to someone, I think that could be so toxic. Because if we talk about like love, like pure love, like love down to its core, it should transcend over the color of someone's skin or their sexuality or what they look like or how they dress. And I think that once you let that prejudice get in the way, that's kind of where it gets a little like, man, you're missing out on so much, you know?
You know, I have like a really interesting view on this, because in my personal opinion, I think there should be no preferences at all. I'm a mixed kid. My parents are a mixed couple. My grandparents are a mixed couple. I'm dating someone who's outside of my race. So in my life, everything is mixed. And I've dated people inside of my race, outside of my race. Everyone in my family has as well. But the thing that we've never done is we've never had a preference. Like, I've never been like, oh, I like blonde hair, I like blue eyes, or I like whatever skin color or this or that. I don't know. I just feel like the whole idea of having a preference automatically puts you against maybe looking for something different and looking for someone else or something unique in a person.
Like, I ain't got no type. Lovely women are the only thing that I like. So over here with #MySide, no, because I'm looking at Alex. She says, I think that if you grew up in a community full of interracial couples, it would impact your decision. And clearly over here, I mean, you have all those mixed race couples in your relationship. And we're from Toronto. I mean, we're from like a super multicultural city. You can't avoid interracial dating. I've had interracial relationships. You?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think even that also kind of shaped my preference, is because I've had like experiences with dating different outside of my race and within my race. And me, like, I grew up around a predominantly like Black community, Hispanic community, and that's kind of what I've been known to be comfortable with. Like, I'm around, like, those are my people. So when I say that, a lot of people say, oh, we want to date Black girls, we want to date like Hispanic girls. For me, it's just like, that's from my experience, and that's what I feel comfortable with.
And I feel like, yeah.
Frank, I'm very interested to hear what you say, because you've come from a very traditional Chinese background, I understand.
Yeah, so I personally don't have any preferences, but I do think my parents and let's say my relatives, they kind of do expect me to, let's say, date an Asian girl or marry an Asian girl. And I think it's a built-in cultural, bias in terms of you should be dating your own race and you should be having kids with people in your own race. I think it's more of a parental pressure in terms of like, that's a consideration that I'd put on myself.
I want to throw out a big question. Why do you guys think there's so few interracial couples? Because 4.6% of the Canadian population is really wild.
I think a big part of it is because of number one, just there's so many small towns and stuff like that. You don't have this opportunity to grow up around them and you think they're different. But a lot of it is as an immigrant. And I mean, I'm lucky enough my parents never pressured me. But I feel for someone like Frank, where it's like, you're sort of afraid where even if you're interested with someone and getting married later on.
I'm not exactly sure my parents are pressuring me, but I'm saying that's the general, I guess, Asian culture. I'm not gonna generalize the Chinese community.
Totally an Asian culture thing. Like I think back, or even just like on that whatever that like Asia, it's a big thing where most families they want to date someone who's of lighter skin, and when you date someone who's darker, it's kind of just like, well, what are you doing? And it goes back to like if you look in history where colonization happened, where the people who were richer stayed inside, so they didn't have the sun on their skin. So if you were darker, you were looked at as poor, and that kind of just generationally just built down onto you know how we live life now.
I don't find it racist if someone has a racial preference. I'm actually biracial and I do have a racial preference, but that does not make me racist. I just have my own opinion just like everybody else, and since I'm different from everybody else, my opinion will be different.
At what point is it no longer appropriate to be roommates with your parents? A recent analysis of U.S. Census Bureau data shows that 38.4% of 18 to 34-year-olds are living with their family, with similar numbers in Canada. In 2014, Pew Research found that young adults were more likely to be living in their parents' home than with a partner. These young people have been called Boomerang Kids, and experts say they're coming home because of massive student debt, expensive rent, and a tough job market. Some argue that this arrangement is the only way for young people to save money. But others say young people who live at home are missing out on life, and parents who let them are delaying their development. What do you think about adults returning home to live with their parents? Is there an age at which it's no longer acceptable?
You know, in the past we've had these jokes about the 30-year-old living in their mom's basement still, but I feel like the reality has changed right now, and it kind of bothers me that, you know, I've moved out because I go to a university in a different town, but now my friends that go to university in the same town, some of them are almost being nudged out by their parents, whereas when I think of it, I think it's so almost financially irresponsible to leave your parents' home if you live in the same city, because rent is insane. Student debt already got you stressing out really badly. And the fact of the matter is, you know, the realities have changed. And I think parents should be more open to letting their kids stay there until they can save up enough to at least make a down payment.
I feel like I slightly disagree with you in terms of, I feel like, yes, that's a very quick fix, but in terms of actually getting people to go out there and really experience themselves and maybe have a bit more ambition and have a bit more success, you'd have to go out and leave your parents, leave your support system. I mean, the times where I felt like I've grown the most was at summer camps where my parents weren't around. like I really felt like I'd grown.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the sad thing, because one thing that I do when I speak to parents, I try to remind them that it's their job to instill their kids with the skills and all the things necessary to, you know, really prosper in life. You know, a lot of these kids, we go out into the world and we don't know how to do things. We don't know how to save money. We don't know how to like cook or clean our own house or manage anything. That's why we have to go back to our parents, because we were never taught that. And I think it goes a lot, I put a lot of pressure on the parents to, you know, do something, try to teach your kids how to live life.
No, hang on, let me get in here. Because personally, I think I made a very conscious decision when I decided not to go away from university. My parents and I sat down, and wasn't financially available for me to go away from university, so I stayed home. But I would very much consider living with my parents, not because it's financially this or financially that, or you need to experience life, whatever. I just genuinely enjoy being around my parents, and I don't think I'll be ready to leave my parents for, like, I guess I'm an only child, and I'm really, really, really close to my parents, so I don't think I'll be able to leave my parents anytime soon.
I find it slightly concerning for society in terms of we have people who still live with their parents and are dependent on their parents.
Here's the thing, though. People live longer than ever before. So if you're living to be 85, when people used to only live to be 65, you got an extra 20 years. You can live an extra 20 years with your parents, in my opinion.
I think if you're going to a school where you can live at home for your undergraduate especially, you might as well take advantage of it. Because there's so many more expectations nowadays to get another degree on top of your undergrad that you might as well try to save money anywhere that you possibly can when it comes to your education.
'Tis the season for overspending, then regretting it once you see your credit card bill. The decision to buy something isn't as simple as it seems. Behavioral economics uses psychology to explain why we behave the way we do. And it turns out our brain covertly impacts our shopping decisions through biases. When you think you've come up with the perfect gift idea for your friend and then only pay attention to the positive product reviews online, that's confirmation bias. You're only taking into account the information that matches your pre-existing beliefs. When you buy something even though you know you should be saving up for something else, that's present bias, when you overvalue the present over the future. And when you buy something because everyone's posting about it on social media, that's herding, the tendency to follow the crowd, whether it's smart to or not. Next time you're about to buy, stop and think about the why behind your purchase first. It could save you some cold, hard cash.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Okay, so I want to address you by a different name right now. It's Win Channing.
Yes.
That was a name that you.
That
was a name that you used when you wrote a series of teen vampire romance novels.
Yep.
Why that name? How do you come up with a name like that?
That's actually my middle name and the street that I grew up on.
Wow.
Really?
It's like an alter ego.
Yeah.
So we just talked about kids moving back home. What are your thoughts on that topic?
You guys made a lot of excellent points, and I actually moved out when I was 18 to go to school, and so I really think that I really liked your point about sort of independence, but I think if your parents are okay with it, it's the best for your finances. My man-child of a husband, he lived at home until, I don't know, like forever, and he was able to save so much money. And like you said, student debt, tens of thousands of dollars. So if you can, any way that you can save money, pay down that debt, including living at your parents' house for a little bit, it's great for your financial success.
No, I completely agree. That's why I decided to live with my parents. Well, they forced me, but I do genuinely enjoy living with them. So it's the Christmas season, and I know lots of people are buying Christmas presents, and I tend to overspend and then cry when I look at my credit card bill at the end of the month. Do you have any tips for not overspending in this Christmas season?
So, yes, it is very easy to overspend. Everyone gets super excited over the festive holiday season. You get excited about spending. You see all the spending cues, like the sales, the ads, the decorations, right? And everyone around you is spending. So herd mentality, right? So you also get swept up in it, and then afterwards you are feeling a lot of regret. So I have 2 solutions for this issue. Number 1, if you can, start with a plan. So that means figure out who you need to buy for, what you need to buy, tally it all up, look at the total. If that total freaks you out, then you need to cross things off your list. The other way to do it is to go backwards. Think about, I have this amount of money to spend, let's allocate it properly. The second thing is your credit card bill. You don't want the ghost of Christmas past haunting your credit card bill. So I would use cash. Take the cash that you need and then go shopping with that, because your brain processes pain when you use cash. So you see an ugly Christmas sweater, it's 50 bucks, you're like, ouch, 50 bucks. But if you use your credit card, it actually removes the pain. So then you're like, oh, $50 for, you know, an ugly Christmas sweater? It's done.
No, yeah, I actually I hit up the ATM first at the mall, and then I pay with cash and I buy all my stuff. Yeah.
Good plan.
So this is for my friends, of course. You know, so I'm asking for them over here, but some people have trouble saving for the long term.
Some.
and I was just wondering for my friends at home if you had any tips.
Hey, no shame, because I've considered a money expert, but in the past I've also had problems saving, right? I mean, research shows we enjoy putting value in the present, right? We don't like delayed gratification. We basically like tomorrow, we'll worry about later. So you have to basically outsmart yourself. So before, I used to save by waiting till the end of the month and just saving whatever I had left over. Surprise, surprise, thing was in my bank account, right? And so it's like eating a bowl of chips. You're like, I'm gonna save some of this for tomorrow, right? And then 10 minutes later, you're like, oh crap, there's no chips in this bowl. So you actually have to take a handful of chips out first. Yeah. Same things for saving. So basically automatically pull an online transfer of money into a separate account. Every month, you will notice it's gone, and then you won't spend it.
Yes.
Wow, that's really smart.
That's like, so that's kind of what I've been doing. Like every paycheck just automated goes to my TFSA. And like, so I made it a goal for myself to buy a house in 5 years. Okay. And I wanted to know if, given the state of the economy, do you think it's better to rent or do you think it's better to buy?
Oh, a house is expensive, especially in Toronto and Vancouver. So if you do have to adjust your goals, your home ownership dreams, that's okay. Like living with your parents for a little bit longer, asking them to help you with a down payment, maybe moving into a condo first as opposed to a house maybe outside of the city. That being said, there's nothing wrong with renting when you're young because it gives you the mobility, it gives you flexibility to move, you get another job, right? And also it frees up some of your money. It's not all tied into a house, so you can use it for other priorities.
One of the things that I noticed you said is don't or only shop when you're not hungry and you're in a good mood. Yes. So what happens if you shop when you're very angry and very hungry? Okay.
No, it's a lot of people. Research shows that when your mental resources are limited, you have lower willpower, right? You ever heard of retail therapy? You're feeling crappy, so you go and try to make yourself feel better by buying something, which is probably not good for you in the long run. Or when you're hungry and you go grocery shopping, you buy more food than you think you, because you overestimate how much you can eat. And so if you're not in a good place, if you're stressed, if you're tired, don't go online shopping, stay out of the malls, because you'll probably make poor choices.
So we're gonna be doing a little fun game called Offside Offside. If it's a yes, thumbs up. If it's no, thumbs down. The topic is money.
Okay.
Good luck.
I like this topic.
Immediate reactions.
Okay,
get it.
So our first question is, buying lottery tickets. 3, 2, 1.
Oh. more lower.
Yeah, I feel like you have like a 1 in like how many million chance. I just feel like you could totally do that, so much other things with that money.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And there's lots of studies that show that people who actually win the lottery are not that much happier.
Onside or offside, asking someone how much they make on a date. 3, 2, 1.
Sure.
Why?
Why not? Well, you don't have to say, how much money do you make, like 5 minutes into it.
Yeah.
You guys can discuss your money goals and what your salary goals are and talk about how you guys can ask for raises. I mean, I would talk about that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's the first thing that's like one of the first things I'm just like, I just feel like so annoying. Like, come on, let's have a conversation first.
Okay, so our third question, speaking of dates,
yeah.
Men paying on the first date. 3, 2, 1.
And women paying on the first date. We do this too.
I think it's amazing if women offer, but it's totally amazing if men pay.
Well, Melissa, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us.
Thank you. It's so fun.
Good advice. We'll try and take it. Being the fact that you're my mom and you're the most adulty adult I know, can you give me some advice and some info on what adulting actually means to you?
Okay, adulting is about real life. It's the day when you really have to do things for yourself. In your case, it's going to be the day when you have to make your own food.
Oh, no.
Okay.
So talking about like being a young woman, and you're a young woman still, and I'm a young woman, what do you think, you know, being that you have so much experience, is the most important thing that a young woman should do to prepare herself for the world and for life as she gets older?
I think the number one thing is to realize that life is going to require that any young woman, person actually, has a lot of strength and grit to get through life. And I don't think that's appreciated enough, that the stronger you make a girl, child, person, the better off and the easier it is going to be for them in life.
Like I can recall when I was really young, you were always taking me to the office and stuff, and I wasn't like I had my Barbie doll time and that kind of stuff, but it was also like a lot of like learning about the world and learning about how to like stand on my own 2 feet. And that comes back to like adulting and how you're saying like independence is so important, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I wanted you to learn how to find your own way in this world, how to find your own game, how to fish, and to make your own way in this world and have the strength to deal with all the things that you're going to need to, and anybody's going to need to.
Another thing I want to talk about is obviously we have a really close relationship, a really close mother-daughter bond, and I know that you've supported me as a young woman through my entire life, and you continue to support me. I just wanted to know from your opinion how you support a woman and why it is so important, do you think, for women to support other women?
Throughout my career, I've been both lucky and unlucky. I've met really great women, and I'm surrounded by a tribe that I have that push me up and I push them up, and together we go further. I've also met the opposite, and that's just such a negative experience. It doesn't benefit anybody, and it only makes the world a worse place. But if we can put our skills together, put our heads together, and help each other get further, we're going to be so much further ahead. And it's opening doors for each other and mentoring each other, championing each other. The benefit of that is just exponential.
I tell you a lot because I'm really close to you, right? And I don't know, sometimes I wonder if I tell you too much or too little. So what do you think is the line between when I tell you way too much about my personal life and you're just like, I don't want to know, just grow up type of thing?
What type of open relationship that we have that is unique to us, and it may not work for everybody, but in our situation, I'm good with that because I want to know what's going on in your life, and I can accept that.
Being that you've passed your teenage years, what would you tell your teenage self?
You know what, it's kind of a conundrum, my advice, because on one hand, I was a really big planner, and I planned out my life. And in some ways, I wished I was more spontaneous and traveled more, which I'm kind of making up for now. But it would have been a bit more. It would have been a bit more balanced if I'd done it all along instead of being so responsible all the time. So it's a fine balance between responsibility and also having fun.
So I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about Justin Trudeau. Christian was tweeting tonight. He said that they sell the My Canadian Boyfriend posters in his university's bookstore in Chicago. And he says every time he walks by them, he feels so bad, so much shame for the PM, and he thinks that he probably really wants to be taken seriously, but this is not the way to do it. I know you're all for this. Why do you think that this doesn't take away from his work as the Prime Minister? Why is this okay?
Because everyone has a political side and everyone has a public image side. And Justin Trudeau has done an amazing job in terms of his public image side. And for having the world to adorn him and admire him, it only helps Canada. And it's not embarrassing at all. I mean, Christian jealous or something?
You're my friend. Okay, let's talk about the terror and the phobia topic again. So this came in from Brandon, and he said, because we live in one of the best and safest countries in the world, these events haven't affected my daily life. I'm thankful to live in a place where I can go about my daily activities without having to feel this. Now, I know that a lot of people in Canada do feel safe. We haven't really been the ones that have been targeted to the same level and degree as what's been happening in Europe. Does this play into it, or you're looking around the world and you're thinking that this could happen at home, Teddy?
I think if you were to ask me like a place where I'd feel unsafe, it would be if I was, you know, a young Muslim man in, you know, countries like Iraq, countries like, because a majority of these deaths from these terrorist attacks are these young Muslim men and women and children.
Are you saying you would feel unsafe as a Muslim man
in
another country
those
or
countries?
in Canada?
No, not over here. I mean in those countries.
Because things are happening in Canada too, though. People are being attacked.
Not to the same extent.
But I think I heard this from a politician from my community. She's told us that, you know, we're very lucky and privileged, and a lot of times we forget that in a lot of ways our choices and our laws allow us to be free. Like as much as we like to tell ourselves we're not, we're allowed to do so many things, whereas people in other countries, in third world countries, they're so scared, where these things are every day for them. What do we have to worry about? Let's be honest.
This is about living with parents. This came in from Ward using the hashtag #MySide. He said, if you are mooching off your parents and coming back like a boomerang after being told to leave, and if you are not helping your family in any way, then why are you there? Take a hint. I think some people are mooching. I get the financial piece, I get coming out of school, but don't you know some people that might just be mooching a little too long, Layla?
I actually don't. I literally, honestly, in my heart think with the financial situation of the world, if you kick your kids out, your kids are gonna starve. I'm literally looking at buying a house, maybe in the future with my partner, and we literally have to look 2.5 hours east or 2.5 hours west or 2.5 hours north of Toronto. If I want to work in the city and make money where all of my jobs are going to be, I'm gonna have to commute 2.5 hours one way. That's insane. Yeah. I need to live with my parents to survive.
Fair. Thanks, guys. Thank you for this.
Thank you.
So what I didn't get to say this week has to go back to interracial dating. I think although I may have my own preferences as to who I want to date in particular, that is based off experiences. And for me, I think when it's not by experience, it's by prejudice, that is the reason that you won't date someone. I think that's very hurtful. You know, in a study it said that Asian men and black women were the least likely to get swiped right or be attracted to. And for me, that kind of hurts because, you know, if maybe we took the time to get to know each other and have the conversation and maybe find things that we relate with each other, maybe we would have more common than you think. And so my thing goes back to interracial dating, and sometimes preferences can be almost toxic.